Well, hello there. How are you? I hope you're doing well and I hope you're in great spirits. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of The Working Ant with me, your host and coach, Rami Balut. Let's jump right into it, shall we? Look, let's just be very, very open, honest, and upfront here with the way things are going in the workplace. You know, from my conversations with many of you, it's very, very challenging these days. And I want to be able to acknowledge that, as much as I am an advocate for you as your host and coach, I want to recognize that, it's not an easy time to be as part of the global workforce these days. There's a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of pressure to perform, unlike what many have seen in years. And although this is just cyclical, and I believe things will certainly take a turn for the better eventually. I mean, how's that for a prediction? I think any one of us can actually say that. But the reality is, eventually things are going to get better. Eventually things are going to look up. Eventually, those of you that are in a place where you're unhappy and there's much more you could be doing outside of that, and you've chosen to ride out this storm because, well, the reality is you want to keep a roof over your head for yourself and for your family. You want to maintain the quality of lifestyle you've built. But when things do open up, there will be other opportunities. And through times like this is sort of like where, we really, really need to ask of ourselves the following. And I know this isn't an easy ask, but it's a necessary one. It's a must, actually. We need to operate as if we're like a lynx. And it's just so funny. I don't use that many analogies on animals. I think I've used puppy before during the interview process, the curious little puppy, the curious little animal puppy there. But no, in this case, I want you to imagine yourself as a sphinx. Did I say sphinx? I meant lynx. Lynx, the cat, the bobcat, the lynx. Why the lynx and not the sphinx? The lynx is, an animal capable of seeing so much at night. It has night vision. It has an amazing way of tracking prey and hunting at night. You'll rarely ever see a lynx, which is another form of like a bobcat, I think, during the daytime because it's primarily a nocturnal animal. It hunts at night. And the reason why I'm using that analogy here is because I'm going to be asking you to see the light in that darkness. You've got to be the only sphinx that's going to be advocating for yourself through times like this, because I know it's really difficult. I know how challenging it is. And if we can actually get to a level where we can be optimistic about what the future is going to hold for us, my gosh, are we going to be better off for it? Remember this, and here I am saying what you may already know, but if you didn't know, well, now you know that the single most critical element to one's success is their motivation. Their motivation. It's as simple as that. It's their level of motivation. Your level of motivation can amplify and accelerate your aspirational objectives tenfold if you're motivated. And today, when willpower is so low and when it's so hard to get any sort of energy outside of the energy that's required of you to perform at double or maybe triple the output and capacity you've been asked to before, I know this is a very challenging ask, but it's a necessary ask. It's a must. It's like you've got to get a checkup. You've got to do this as well. You've got to look at the world and your situation in particular with optics of optimism. If you don't, your level of motivation is going to drop. And if your level of motivation drops, well, the likelihood of you feeling that you're overworked and underutilized, I mean, both of those things will amplify through the freaking roof. And so what we need to do here is to sort of turn back the clock. Turn back the clock and think through what on earth our aspirational objectives are. Do you remember those? Do you remember the days when you were thinking to yourself like, man, I've got some time here. What should I do with that? What do I want to do with myself? Where do I want to be a year, 2, 3, 5 on out from here? What is it going to take for me to get there? The taking to get there part is so much harder to see these days because of all the work that's coming our way. I don't fault you for that. You shouldn't fault yourself for that. Ain't no one got time for that. But what you do have time for is to make the space for the optics of optimism for yourself. You've got to be that lynx at night. You've got to look at the scenario. You got to look at the playing field. And you got to see optics of optimism through it all. Say to yourself, you know what? Throughout this whole entire situation where I am being royally screwed left and right with the time that's being asked of me to do things like never before. And if you're going and you're growing in your career, man, oh man, energy levels may not be what they used to be. And that just may be the reality of things. But I would argue that energy levels are not where they used to be because your levels of motivation have dropped. Your levels of motivation have dropped unless you're able to crystallize. And I'm not mincing words here. Unless you're able to crystallize what you're doing all this for, what it's going to take you to get there. Nothing, not this, not anything else is going to get in that way. This is just a drop in the ocean of your overall career journey. This is just a drop in the ocean of so many other things that have been drops in the ocean along the path, along the way, and you still survived, and you're still here, and you're still healthy, and you're still well. Yes, there is a cost associated with what's being asked of you. I want to recognize that. There's a cost associated with your relationships. It's hard to be a great lover, a great brother, a great sister, a great mother, a great father, a great partner these days. It's not easy to get a good night's sleep. It's not easy to make the space to do some of your favorite things. It's just not easy, nor will it be easy for the foreseeable future. But if you operate like a lynx in the darkness and you're able to see through it all that, hey, this is what I'm doing it for, then your willpower is going to increase. And if your willpower increases, the level of individual load you feel on yourself gets lighter. It's like, whew, got a little bit lighter on me. You may feel, and rightly so, very much underutilized still. But who doesn't? If you ask most people across the country, and there have been several surveys on this, do most people feel overworked? Yes, but not in proportion to the people that actually feel that are underutilized. And so the underutilization of where you are today, that will just continue until you've achieved the goals you've set out for yourself. And even then, you may feel that your self-efficacy is not aligned and not in parallel and not balanced out with your self-actualization. The strongest potential power of your personal spirit as a human, may not be there. But man, will you be much closer. And even if you're unable to achieve those goals, and you say to yourself, like, or at least if you tell me, you have been through some of your messages, through some of your real talk conversations you've scheduled with me, and through some of your emails that, Rami, it's just impossible for me to get ahead in a day like this. I've got to quit my job in order to get ahead. I've got to take some time off only to rest up. You think I'm going to be able to pursue my roles, my roles and responsibilities the way I want to give me the space that I need so I can achieve my goals for the future? Wrong, Rami. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. But I'm telling you that it must happen. You must have that space. You must operate like a lynx at night. You must see things with optics of optimism. Otherwise, it's just going to continue down a spiraling path of self-imposed here destruction. And I say self-imposed destruction. I don't mean it like, oh my gosh, we're going to self-destruct Inspector Gadget style and blow shit up. No, not at all. I'm talking about you and your aspirations, the things that you used to dream about, the things that you care about, the things that motivated you to get here to be where you are in the first place, to go through life as you know it. You can't lose track of those things. It's undeserving of you to do so. And so I need to be in a position where I can tell you that if you can operate like a lynx in the middle of the night where everyone is asleep and it has just this beautiful, eye-opening vision of its target, well, then you're going to be in a much, much better position for success. But you've got to see it that way, because I know that times are very difficult. But if we don't do this for ourselves, who else is going to do it for us? You know, it's like if we think about our levels of motivation here, we've got to think about the why, what we're in this for, why we're doing it, where we want to go. And I need you to remember why you got here to begin with, how you put yourself in this situation where, you know what, I may not be able to get what I want at this point in time, but I sure as hell am going to remind myself of my future goals so I could keep going strong at it. It's necessary. It's a must to do so. So if you are preparing for your next interview, you've got to be able to capitalize on the opportunity and that what you're doing today has a strong, prioritized, essentialized plan of action where you're moving the needle with less. And you've got to document those things and write those down. If you're putting yourself up for promotion, you've got to be able to go out and seek advocates for you that are going to be able to write you recommendations, write you referrals, get up and speak on your behalf, because the work that you're doing is not going to speak for itself. You're going to have to speak for that work. Someone's going to have to speak for that work for you, and it's got to work for you. And so you've got to make sure that by the time that time comes, you've got all those chess moves in play where you know who you're going to be contacting. You know who you're going to be anchoring off of. You know who you're going to be relying on. And guess what? The sooner you know how to do that now, the sooner you're going to understand like whether these people are actually the ones that are going to be there for me when I need them in the future. And if in fact you should be investing your time in these people because of how they may be investing their time back to you. You've got to do that quickly. You've got to do that with a bias for action where your butt's burning. That's how I've got to put it. I can't put it any other way, because the sooner you do that, the more clarity you're going to have. The more clarity you have on where you stand, the more silver lining opportunities there will be, the more understanding you're going to have over what you're going to be doing next, what it's going to take to get there. You've got to be your own self-advocate. That's how you're going to reach self-actualization. That's how you're going to generate self-efficacy for yourself when you need it the most. Be the lynx at night, the soul hunter at night, looking at its targets with clarity. That despite everything that's going on at this moment, you know what you're after. You know where it's at, and you know what it's going to take to get there. And if you don't get there, at least it's better to have a noble pursuit where you're chasing it. I mean, well, what's the alternative to that? And remind yourself, when I do achieve this goal, what's that going to mean to me? What's going to happen then? What's supposed to happen then? How am I going to feel then? Am I going to feel anything like the way I felt like I should feel? Am I going to be in a position where I'm yet going to put myself in another position to achieve something else? What am I all in this for? Is it the learning? Is it the relationship? Is it the growth opportunities at work? Is it the contribution? Is it the value and the impact? Is it the significance you achieve from the contributions you give? You and you alone will know this. But know just this: it's the Sphinx at night that sees the light in the midst of the darkness that is going to be the closest to achieving its target in the future. And need I remind you, if not you, then who? If not now, then when? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Working Ant. See you all next week.